What is up? How is it going? We are starting a little early, 7 minutes early. Why are we doing that? Because I thought this little board was going to take a lot of time to fill. So I jumped in one thinking that, you know what? We've got some time. This way we'll make sure that we can actually get some momentum, get one into this draft. And turns out I was the 12th person to join. People need to be drafting. When the big board fills, people now starting to unload their little board. Seeing even a familiar name or two in here, which is surprising because for the little board, you only get 2 entries. This is supposed to be just for beginners. We are, there's a shark in the water, but nothing else to draft. So that's what we are doing on the stream today. We've got a little board here. We'll do a full draft. We'll talk through what's going on, all the updates. We can go through my exposures as well. Let you see me at my most vulnerable, see where I've made some horrible mistakes. Because last time I talked to you all, I believe someone asked a question is what I believe was the best kind of QB value on the board. And I said Trey Lance. And my exposure will back that up. Did not expect. I mean, I've been trying to play over the last few days. Like, was this a process mistake? Was I on the wrong side of just kind of getting unlucky? Or are we just overreacting and really nothing has changed that much? I think one thing for sure is if the tournament didn't end, last night, this would have been overall just disaster for me. I think I'm at around 25% exposure to Trey Lance. And what would have been happening is I put up a Twitter poll the other day that was asking, would you rather have Trey Lance or Anthony Richardson for best ball this year? And it was close to 50-50. Anthony Richardson was actually ahead. I updated the rank shortly after. Trey Lance has fallen quite a bit. If you look to see right now, where do we have him? Right here after Kyler, before Bryce. And I think that ADP is going to continue to fall to about that area, maybe even further. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. But thankfully, with that big board closing out, the people who were drafting him, everyone was getting him at around that same spot. So it's not like we're right now, it's more of just a bet on hey, does he actually perform well? But even if he does, it's not like people were then getting her in that 14th, 15th, 16th round often. So that is that. But I will go through exposures. Starting off this draft with a little wide receiver, which I am perfectly content with, especially for doing a little board, which my assumption is going to be little boards for the most part are going to be people going a little more running back heavy. The purpose for this draft was really to provide new people to Underdog with the ability to get your feet wet in a draft. And that's a low price point, just that $3 place. And only allowing each person to have 2 entries because they know that if Underdog launched a $3 mass entry 150 max, just like any of the Pomeranians, just like the puppies, those things would fill within days. And then they miss out on what their goal was actually to be able to provide an always available access point for actual new people. So change the strategy a little for this one and how we draft. Probably going to be one of the most EV tournaments there is. But again, it's only a $3 entry. If we take a look at kind of what the prizes look like for this tournament, we're talking just under 20K total entrants. First prize is First prize is 10K. That's what we're going for, though. We're going for the ring. We're trying to get first here, obviously. But this is just a fun little way for us to hang out on a Thursday, almost afternoon, and can continue to kind of, chat through any questions, anything chat wants to talk to. And I will. I'll probably end the show at the end. We can go through my actual exposures for the big board and everything there. Okay. Sup. Good to see you all. What's the latest you've seen Lamar go? 67 is definitely late. I've been taking him in the mid-late 50s a lot. And I feel really good. I feel pretty good about it. I know, like I mentioned earlier on, I can still see some hesitation with regards to, whether he sits out, whether he kind of gets injured and maybe doesn't play the full season, whether we'd have him for the playoffs. I think those are all valid concerns, and those haven't really substantially changed. But his ADP has dramatically shifted, and we're getting him, multiple rounds past where he should be going if we knew we were going to get a full season for him. And that's even baking in that we know that these other quarterbacks, the Mahomes, the Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, are going in the second round. If you knew that Lamar was going to play the full year, if he got traded, signed a long-term contract with Baltimore, whatever it was, I would guess he'd be probably a mid to late third rounder. So if you're getting him, in those late 50s, I'm all about it. I have not been taking him kind of in the 40s or above ADP just because we've seen the trend of him dropping and people just having that level of uncertainty. So I'm not reaching on him or anything, but I'm definitely quite content with grabbing him if he starts falling. And 67, love that, Greg. Who do you prefer between Wilson and ASB? I keep going back and forth on those two. I think that's a tough one. I think the market overall is going to be a bit more in favor of Wilson. So one thing I will note as well is if you've taken a look at the ETR, underdog ranks that we put out, they've probably look a little different over the past couple days than they did the past couple months. And to give a little insight why that was is, so prior to the past couple of days, the ranks were more kind of, I'd say, more kind of subjective, more based off feel, more based off the art than the science, as we put it. Obviously, there's still a lot of kind of data that goes in, but they weren't the true ETR projections that the team and Leone really leads and the rest of the team gives a ton of feedback on. But that's where we are now. So you're starting to see some things move. Now, a lot of the things from before that still took in insight from the rest of the team. There's still feedback going on, but it wasn't a full, purely projections data driven. And that's where they are right now. So I was going to pull up after this pick. We can take a look. I'm going to be grabbing Ramondre here, the last of these running backs that I do really like. But I was going to say, so if you look at the new rankings, we've got Garrett Wilson at 16 overall. We have Amon-Ra at 11. So I think from a pure ranking standpoint, Amon-Ra fits there. I do understand hey, they just signed Marvin Jones. Jameson Williams is back. Jameson is back and such. And so maybe there's hey, do you think there's risk? But Amon-Ra has always been able to earn those targets. I think we still love, his role and his talent. What I think would be interesting with the Garrett Wilson as well is hey, if we are 100% sure Rodgers goes there, that's when Garrett Wilson, maybe at least in my mind, would be above Amon-Ra. But there still is a level of uncertainty there. And then, I think if Rodgers goes there, the expected touchdowns for Garrett Wilson just has to have a major uptick from anything he saw last year. And honestly, anything he'd expect from just about any of the quarterback because of what we saw Rodgers has done with Devontae Adams, with those kind of, 1 yard, 3 yard, 5 yard routes where it's just always finding a way to get it to your alpha wide receiver. That's what we kind of expect for Garrett Wilson with Aaron Rodgers leading that offense. But as we have it right now, I think there still is a risk that Rodgers is not a Jet next year. And even if he was, there's also still the additional risk of, hey, new quarterback with new wide receiver. Do they have the level of rapport I think highly likely, but it's still a possibility. So I get it why, and I'm probably on board with like Amon-Ra right now being ahead of Garrett Wilson. I think I'd probably flip that when Garrett Wilson signs with Rodgers goes to the Packers, to the Jets from the Packers. Sorry. Okay. Sup, Terrell Davis. I'm curious, is this your real name, Terrell Davis, or is this just kind of like your online one? Have you had any confusion where you've called into a restaurant, made a reservation? Do you live in Denver and you got an amazing reservation because they thought you may have been a running back in your day? The things I'm curious about. Okay, we've got Wilson, Lamb, Ramondre. We do like Andrews with the rankings, with Lamar. Could maybe get Andrews, Lamar stack. If I grab Andrews here, Lamar would have to fall to 57. It's definitely possible. Let's do it. Let's grab Mark Andrews. We'll see if Lamar falls to us. If you've been listening to the pods that Levitin and Silva have been putting on, I think, and we even the ETR social team clipped a pod of it and tweeted it out. But they feel that the most likely named after the guy. Love that, Terrell Davis. They feel that the most likely scenario is that Lamar re-signs, stays with the Ravens, whether it's playing on the franchise tag or whether he actually signs a contract. I'm almost always of the opinion that, like, hey, I'm going to make a bet that a player is going to return to their team. You'll kind of get an idea for that when we look at my exposure and why I'm a bit high on Devin Singletary, because same idea, like, yes, there's always a possibility someone leaves, someone goes sign somewhere else, but it feels like the most likely scenario in the majority of these times is that they return to that team. And I think that's what Silva and Levitin are kind of betting on with the current Lamar situation. Now, yes, there is still risk that if Lamar does return to the Ravens on the franchise tag, those things that we talk about, it may just, kind of be concerning with regards to, does he play the whole season? What happens with the small injury, blah, blah, blah. But getting this discount to kind of build for that Baltimore stack, trying to kind of guess, does he go to the Jets? Does he go to Washington? And building those stacks seems a bit kind of tricky, especially in this tournament, where this tournament is still going to be existing probably in a month. I would guess this tournament's still going to exist in a month based off the 2 per person cap. So if that happens, people who play later on, they can get those stacks that they know are correct. So it's not like you're getting that much uniqueness if you're trying to guess for where that Lamar's landing spot ends up. All right, let's pull the big board back up. We can see what's going on here. Good value on the fields here. Kupp, Devonta Smith, Kenneth Walker. That's a strong team coming into play there. Lamar's still available. We could still get the Lamar Mark Andrews stack. We'll see if it comes into play. Sammy there, how's it going? Cheers. Welcome. Glad to have you. Yeah, there's some fantastic other content people in this industry as well, putting out some great best ball content. A couple of years ago, there was virtually nothing. So great to see how far this industry, the best ball content, everything has really, really been coming. Damian Harris seems like a really nice value right now. Yeah, I think so. I think, let's see where his ADP right now is 126. It has risen a decent amount. We have him at 121, right behind Brian Robinson before Samaje Perine. I think, yeah, if you were able to get him where, in those 140s and stuff, that was fantastic. I think the challenge with Damian Harris is just the upside is really difficult to kind of capture. Because yes, like I think Josh Allen is going to have fewer rushing touchdowns and fewer rushing attempts this year than previous years. I think that's why they brought Damian Harris in. But like, I don't think Damian Harris is going to, turn into a workhorse, even if James Cook were to get hurt. Oh, they just auto drafted Lamar. Was purely an ADP thing, lowest ADP, and they auto draft it. Oh, the tilt. Tilt. Okay. We like Godwin. We have no need for Herbert. Not going to grab a naked Lawrence. Stack later. All right, we'll take Godwin. Filato. Okay, we move on. I forgot where I was. The streamer tilt gets you every time. Someone put in chat, what was it? Oh, Damian Harris. But yeah, like not expecting Damian Harris to catch many passes. Didn't do that much on the Belichick offense either. They were pretty much using Ramondre substantially more for that. Even Pierre Strong got some catches on a per route per play basis more than Damian Harris. But I think Damian Harris is going to have that touchdown role. I think he'll probably end up with I'm not the guy to be doing these projections, but something like 8 to 10 carries per game. They just throw so much. It's just hard to see it's hard to see Damian Harris turning into having weeks where he gets a projection of an RB1. And so that's where I think I don't want to push him into the double digits ADP, but at 121, 125, I think, that's perfectly fine. And again, it's about how you are building your team. If you're looking for someone who is going to be able to provide you that kind of, you're going with a fragile, more style build, and you've got 2 great running backs to begin with. And now you're just looking for 2 or 3 more running backs that are just going to kind of get you points each week. If you have an injury, kind of plug and play, but you're not looking for the major breakout. I think, that's a decent spot for a player like him. Sammy asking, did Isaiah McKenzie hit his ceiling last year? Do you think he can be better in best ball? I wouldn't say he hit his ceiling last year. I'd say he hit his ceiling projection going into last year because we had this idea from basically 2 games the year before that he could turn into a full-time player, be a legitimate number 2, number 3 wide receiver and the number 1, passing offense in the league. That obviously did not come to fruition. Okay, we are back here. We could grab Justin Herbert. But again, we're grabbing Justin Herbert without any stack partners, just doing it for the 1 round of value. It's not the worst idea. We could go DeAndre. So if we do need running backs, let's see who it does. We're doing randomness. There we go. We ended up going Herbert. Ended up saying, there's enough of these running backs. We can probably get decent running backs with our next 2 picks. Herbert, we're just going to take that nearly round of value and be okay with it. I'm a little concerned as well, given this is a little the little board draft that people may get a little crazy with quarterbacks. Maybe everyone's going to be grabbing 2 or 3 early on. So I don't really want to get left without a quarterback at all. And Filato backs it up with a Trevor Lawrence. Ugh. Okay. I see Brian Adams saying hey, can Damian Harris be this year's Jamal Adams? I think it's a fair comparison, but I think it's unrealistic to expect any player is going to have the level of touchdown variance that Jamal Williams had, the number of rushes from the 1 yard line, whether it's pass interference in the end zone, Amon-Ra St. Brown getting tackled at the 1. That 14 touchdown year for Jamal Williams was obviously best case scenario. But I think, it's a similar comp. But Jared Goff isn't running it in from the 3 and the 5, but Josh Allen does. And so are we expecting Josh Allen to just not do that at all anymore? I think he's going to do it a little less, and they don't want. I think it was either maybe Silva 1110 was referencing they don't want Josh Allen to be the next to Cam Newton, where just always using it, has the injuries, has the long-term damage. So expect Josh Allen to run fewer times around the red zone, but I don't think it's just non-existent. So I get the Jamal Williams comp. I think it makes sense. Maybe we say Jamal Williams light. Also, Jamal Williams is a much better pass catcher. And even though they had DeAndre Swift, he would still catch passes in that offense. So Okay. Well, Sammy, I appreciate it. I don't even know what that stuff is. My guess is ETR doesn't have that enabled. Just you being here is great enough, and being in the chat. Maybe give it a like, give it a subscribe. do all that jazz that helps the algorithm give us a little pump. But no, appreciate you being here. Alphabet saying good fade on Swift. I had a discussion with I think it was with Leone and Levitan yesterday on this, where I thought that we were a little high on DeAndre Swift based off where our rankings are, and I felt like the gap between him and David Montgomery felt a little too large. Leone pushed back and he said, like, we're pretty conservative, to be honest, on the current one. We definitely have risk baked in with regard to David Montgomery and like roll risk. And he still is just a strong value given his efficiency and then pass catching role. So, hey, I'm willing to believe the numbers and go from there. But yeah, I don't think I don't have that much Swift. I don't think I'm going to end up with a ton of Swift. But you know, if Herbert wasn't there, I'd have taken him. Almost still did. Yeah, Brian Adams saying Bills want to protect Josh. Damian got bench of goal line stuff. Plus, he's a beast between tackles and healthy. I completely agree. I was big into Damian Harris last year when Ramondre started getting steamed. I started off on the Ramondre train, then Ramondre starts getting steamed, and then Damian Harris started following. So I was happy to kind of get a significant chunk of them both last year. I think Damian Harris could be good. Yeah, I mean, could you see? All right, we're coming back around. We mentioned that we were looking at running backs because we just have the Ramondre, but the onesies were looking pretty decent. I think we'll grab Dave Montgomery. Pretty funny that at the end of the day, our 2v2 was going to be Swift and Daniel John. I don't think we would have taken the QB. It would have been Swift and maybe Akers. Swift and maybe Cooks, but instead we're going to get David Montgomery, which I honestly like. I would not be shocked if David Montgomery, I don't even want to say shocked. Like, if you ask me, do I think Dave Montgomery, DeAndre Swift will end the year with more fantasy points? God, I think that's got to be close. Like, if you gave me some kind of odds on Dave Montgomery, I mean, I'd probably take it. Like, just because I think it's very close. I think if we consider like what is the upside scenario, it's tough though. I still honestly believe that like Dave Montgomery has more upside in that offense than DeAndre Swift. Like, if one of those two players gets hurt, I don't expect DeAndre Swift to then be a workhorse. That's how they've never how they used him. I don't expect that to change. If DeAndre Swift got hurt, I could see Dave Montgomery being a workhorse, catching 6-7 balls in a game, having like huge games. Like, no, he's never going to be as efficient as DeAndre Swift is. So like on an individual play-by-play basis, he doesn't have that, that likelihood of a breakout play that DeAndre Swift has. But like one-to-one comparison, like I think David Montgomery has more upside, and I'd be pretty damn close to choose David Montgomery to outscore DeAndre Swift. This is going to be an interesting one. I may have to, when we get Leone on stream, we're going to have to battle this one out, see what his numbers say versus my football take here. But it feels so gross, but I feel like I'm team Dave Montgomery there. I like getting Cam Akers falling back a little there. I'm still bullish on, in this area. I don't think there's any play with as much upside as Cam Akers from what we saw with the way that he ended last season when they actually had him healthy. If Rams want to make him a workhorse, getting those 20 plus touches a game and such, like that could be a very, very valuable, steal of the draft from where he's going right now. The thing is, could also very easily have similar situations where he doesn't even play on the games. They have someone else. It's a shared work field. The team is just so horrible. He doesn't actually catch that many passes. There's a lot of routes to Cam Akers failing, but that's all baked in at ADP 82. So I'm okay on a position of need for this team, grabbing him there. Whew. All right. Sammy, don't get too unless Sammy's excited. This is the real Peter over bet. But yeah, there you go. Let's go Buffaloes. Okay, so Brian Adams agreeing. Coin flip for me if they both still have it. Yeah, I think that's completely fair. But you got to build in that if one of them gets hurt, I think there's more upside on Dave Montgomery's side than the DeAndre Swift. Let's see, what is that current backfield? I mean, like current backfield for the Lions. What's that look like? Is there a number? Who's the number 3 that I'm not thinking of right now? You got Craig Reynolds, you got Jamar Jefferson, you got Greg Bell. Okay, so no one really behind them. We saw Craig Reynolds get some run last year. Wouldn't be, I mean, with this draft, like, yes, outside of Bijan, there's not that much high-end running back talent. Like, Gibbs is going to be a great pass catcher, but like, we're not even sure if he's going to be able to ever be a workhorse. There's not that much high end behind Bijan, but like, it's a really deep running back class, and you're going to see a lot of like day 3 people that people get excited about. I mean, like, what, just yesterday, Israel ran a high 4.3s. That's going to get him, going to get people excited about that. Like, but he's still likely going to be a day 3 draft pick. Like, there's a decent amount of running backs that are going to be day 3 draft picks that I think can actually earn a role. And so I think why I bring it up with this situation is I wouldn't be shocked if the Lions end up drafting a 5th, 6th round running back. Someone that, if Dave Montgomery got hurt, that player would then pull his way in. That player would then, gain more of the actual running share of the offense rather than Swift and, taking over. So that's all I was getting at there. Yeah, too much Lions running back talk there. Okay, getting back on track here, taking a look at which stacks we maybe want to build. Godwin, you're either talking trade candidate or Baker. Garrett Wilson could definitely work in some Aaron Rodgers with the Garrett Wilson. Assume that stack. Dak is already gone. Here you're talking Stafford, Goff, Mac Jones. Nothing too great there. How many picks are we going to have? We're going to be at pick 112. Everyone here has 1 QB. Let's see who these QBs are. Burrow, Mahomes, and Daniel Jones. I think there's going to be a major reach on Rodgers if we wanted to fill out with someone else here first. I probably would have gone Myers, but after that, like, there's nothing truly jumping out at us here. Let's just lock in our Rodgers to get our 2nd QB for the Garrett Wilson stack. Could grab another running back. We've got good, but not great running backs. You could always use wide receivers. It just feels like the wide receiver area already got pretty ugly. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones, I don't think his role is going to substantially change with bringing Elijah Moore in. I think DPJ still kind of opens the field and will play that number 2 role. But like, there's definitely a level of risk that Elijah Moore eats in. Say Jones, I really don't know what to think about this one. Like, you got to imagine that like he's just going to have less usage because of Calvin Ridley coming in. Our numbers, math is still really bullish on him though. So I don't want to ignore that. Could go Freiermuth here. Just say like, hey, stop at 2 tight ends. Actually, one thing I really need to figure out real quick is this 20 rounds. This is 20 rounds as well. Okay. Ooh, this feels tough. We're going to grab DPJ instead. Yeah, we're going to grab DPJ. Why I'm not grabbing Freiermuth at the 20 rounds is because we already have like an elite one. And most likely with the 20 rounds, I do like to grab 3 tight ends because the last 2 rounds, there's just still strong tight ends available that are virtually not getting drafted. I could see us grabbing, let's see. I'm trying to see where his ADP nowadays is. Tyler Conklin at 207 to stack with the Rodgers aspect. I could see us also going with Gerald Everett, 181 ADP, stacking with Justin Herbert, assuming he stays with the Chargers. Those are both very late picks that we can grab, and those would be nice complementary to go for a 3 tight end build, getting 2 stack partners. That's why I passed on the Freiermuth, because we're not going to be taking Kenny Pickett as a 3rd QB. we may not even need a third QB. We'll play this one ear by ear, depending on if there's any value. That's why it made sense. And like wide receivers, like I know we started this draft strong, going wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, and go Wilson, which I think is fantastic. We then really slowed down in the wide receivers, and they start getting kind of ugly. So I don't want to just completely ignore the wide receivers. Definitely an argument that we could have grabbed one of the running backs in that spot, like would have been probably A.J. Dillon. Maybe it gives you a backdoor if Rodgers stays at Green Bay, but I'm not really building for that. But I think with the way this is playing out with a 20 round, we'll probably just end up going with some, plug and play, some depth as this draft proceeds, see if there's any value. I feel decent about where we're looking right now. Who is your highest owned rookie running back and wide receiver? We'll jump into all of these after the draft. Off the top of my head, and I'm not 100% positive, but I feel like this is probably the case. I think my highest owned running back is Devin Achane. You guys know I've been just very high on him even prior to the combine, because I think like that was a time where not many people knew who he was, wasn't expecting that he was going to be, I guess not expecting, just didn't know what his speed possibilities were, who he was. And so was very bullish on him back when we were getting him in like the 160s. Eventually obviously got steamed. And then once he started hitting those like 130s is when I slowed down a lot. But I think he's the one that I probably have the most of, and I still like it. Also, if you've been tracking kind of the mock draft databases and such, he was always kind of hovering at that fourth off the board behind Bijan, Gibbs, Charbonnet, I'm not positive, as the fourth one, and he was not being drafted like that. So that's where I probably have my highest there. Wide receiver, I would guess it's more split. I think I've got a decent amount of Jalen Hyatt as like a better and best ball thing. Didn't love that he didn't actually blow away the combine with his rush, with his speed, but still plays. All right, we're gonna take Zay Jones here. I think we're still getting some value there. Here is Hyatt. As I mentioned, I think I got a ton of him, but I'm going to trust the trust the projections here. I think this feels like a pretty good value. Although yes, there are risks with Ridley joining the team. But yeah, Brian, after the draft, we'll go through the actual exposures and then I can confirm. But I think those are my guests. Sammy again. Do I think they'll have a backyard brawl tourney? So they've already had the rookies and sophomores like they had last year. Hayden yesterday had been teasing a couple times about Superflex ranking and Superflex drafts. So my guess is Superflex is the next thing we're going to see come out. And I was honestly actually hoping that it was going to get debuted this morning so we could hop in one for this draft. But my guess is that's going to launch. I was also thinking maybe they're going to like after opening day for baseball, maybe make today about baseball, maybe make tomorrow as we go into the weekend about the Superflex draft. So we'll see. But that'll be the next one. Other than that, like I think they'll continue to kind of bring those tournaments that filled last year that people enjoyed. I hope they'll even continue to experiment and bring in some additional new ones as well. So short answer is, yeah, I think they probably will have that backyard brawl tournament again. And then I'm hopeful that they're also going to have additional, maybe some new structures that they, just continue to innovate and have some fun with. All right, 2 picks away, coming back to us. Hyatt fallen a bit. Let's put him at the top of the queue. We could grab like an Elijah Mitchell. Definitely like Elijah Mitchell. Don't hate that. Let's cue these two guys. Yeah, let's grab the Jalen Hyatt. We're just going to take advantage of that ADP fall. I mean, hey, we're getting 136, 18, 28, 36. We're getting a round and a half of value on Jalen Hyatt on a player that I'm already a little bullish on from a range of outcomes. as a rookie wide receiver, as a going to perform better, more likely, more increased role as the season progresses, so more valuable in the playoffs, all the things that we love about strategery aspects side of things. Okay. Taking a look at the draft board too. Anything crazy popping out at me? This Filato, I just keep looking at. Grabs a third quarterback, 3 QBs in the first 8 rounds, with the first one being Lamar. That's probably not what you want to be doing. I don't really see any craziness beyond that. Flipping through. No, everything honestly on a positional structure wise, nothing crazy. No one overloading. Let's take a look at Ryan's team here. Ryan's got an interesting Deshaun Russ, very strong at the wide receivers. I think going 5 straight wide receivers to start the draft, and then loading on another Elijah Moore here for his Deshaun Watson stack. Let's keep looking. Maybe he'll grab Dolchich. I think Njoku's already gone. Okay. Pete, what do you got from me? In massive field tourneys, how far over 8% are you willing to go on guys you like? All right. This is probably one of the most popular questions we get year in and year out. And I think it's just because it's a really top of people's minds for, I love a player, but like, should I be drafting them, and how much should I be drafting them? How much should I feel comfortable going over exposure? For me, it comes down to, it's not so much that I'm like, oh, I want to hedge in case I'm wrong or like that. But usually when I start getting over maybe 20% on a player, I start doing 2 things. One is I start reassessing, why am I bullish on this player? I'll start talking to some other people, getting a better idea. Like, am I missing something? Do I have a blind spot? And sometimes I'll realize it and I'll be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't actually be taking this player as much. Sometimes I'm going to go through that process and I'm going to be like, you know what? I still feel very strongly. I still really like this player. I'm still going to draft them. Now, when that second thing happens and the latter happens and I still have that level of confidence, I then start asking myself, okay, well, like, am I taking this player above 8 too often? Like, are there times that, hey, I can wait around and still maybe get that same player, but now I'm getting them at a little more value. And yeah, maybe I don't get them at as high of a rate as I used to be getting them, but I'm still substantially overweight. And the times that I'm getting them, I'm making my team overall stronger. So that's where usually I'd say I rarely end up 25% on a player, because if I'm above 25%, I'm probably taking that player too often and I can just wait around to decrease to get better value on that. But that's kind of the threshold. I usually have a couple players that are in that 20 to 25, but I rarely have someone over 25. The one exception I would say is if it's at the very end of a draft and you're like at 30% on a guy in the 18th round or 20th round because you went through that process, you're still really bullish, you feel you're seeing something others aren't. Well, you're not going to be able to take them around later or anything. So if you end up with a bunch of them, it makes sense why you would. Okay. Looking. Kyler's just a nice little ADP value here when I do like going 3 QBs with this. Running backs, nothing really. Tight ends, you could go Dulcich, but I kind of want to. I'm going to pass on the Dulcich one because we were talking about those 2 other ones that we're talking about with LAC and Green Bay, and now we actually pull ourselves with 2 more tight end partners with Kyler as well. So let's just put these in the queue just so we can keep an eye on them. McBride all the way to Ertz. Nice to kind of pair out these late tight ends with QB stacks. Our running backs are looking a little weak. Our wide receivers, I feel pretty good about with going so strong in the first 2 picks here. If I think about like what this structure is going to look like, it's going to be a 3 QB, 3 tight end. So that leaves us with 14 for the others. I think 6-8 or 7-7 are both in play. I think you can assume it's going to be a 6-7 with the final pick of the draft either being just best available between running back or wide receiver, or if it ends up being like a Zach Ertz at the very end for the value, we'll see. But I think 3-6-8-3 or 3-7-7-3 will probably be our structure here. Okay, running backs are obviously getting a bit ugly. Rondale Moore gives us the Kyler stack. I don't hate that. There's no real Chargers. There's no real Jet. I mean, it could go Mecole Hardman as well. Let's put that in. All the Chargers. Okay. Back here is there a running back that we really want to kind of keep an eye on? Could get some rookie late running back. I think we're going to go Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore gives us a stack partner for Arizona that otherwise we may not end up with. It gives us a 7th wide receiver that I feel pretty decent about. And so now if we do want to go 3-7-7-3, I think that's a very viable build. Gives us some optionality rather than locking ourselves into like if we wait long enough, then we're like, now we have to go with the 8 wide receiver build. There you go. Rondale closing line value as well. Yeah, he's been falling. Pretty much all of the Cardinals have fallen a bit. I think just early when the tournament started, like people didn't understand that like Kyler wasn't going to start the year. I remember when I was doing initial rankings, Kyler was like his ADP was like 109 or like low 110s or something like that. Like it was crazy. And so I think I started off with him about like a 135, 140 area. For ADP, just building in that risk of how many games he misses. And so now that he's fallen like as far as he has, he got to 139 here. We got him at 153. Very happy with that as a very late third QB who's most likely going to be at, hey, full health come fantasy playoffs time, which is when the points are really the most necessary. And there is some, I'm not the one to kind of be like, hey, I'm trying to find players that suck during the year, but then can perform well in the playoffs because then they'll be unique for my teams. Because I think there's just a little too much randomness with that. But I do think there are small ways to really optimize for that. One would be more of just like, hey, the spike week type player like a George Kittle, who most weeks like may not be involved, but in those games that he is like has that ridiculous potential. I think those are very, very few players that have that actual mold. But I think one way to truly do it is with suspended players or injured players to start the year, because now we know for sure that that player is going to be on teams that they're on. They're going to have a lower advance rate from purely their lack of play time when they do advance. You're also now there's an increased chance that they're actually going to be healthy at the end of the year because compared to the others, compared to players who are starting week 1, they could have a torn ACL in weeks 1 to 6. But if your player is going to be missing the first 6 weeks or whatever, and they're actually just getting more healthy as they are, rehabbing or if it was suspension or whatever, there's a increased chance versus the ones who had to play the whole season that they'll actually be available from a health-wise at the end of the year. So someone like a Kyler Murray does actually make sense as a decent best ball pick. Just didn't want to be taking him at that 110, 112, 15 spot that he was at the beginning of these tournaments. Okay, we've got the tight ends coming to us. We probably need to bite the bullet on at least one soon. However, I also know that running backs are really starting to get ugly. So think I'll probably grab one running back in this area first before we start going crazy. I like Jalen. I like Tank. I'm okay with either of these. Let's see what Filato does first. Looks like Curtis Samuel is the one. Nope, Jimmy Garoppolo might be lowest ADP, 173. Yep, there it is. Jimmy Garoppolo going straight off that ADP auto draft, 4th QB. Okay. We're going to grab Jaylen Warren. Bullish on Warren in general, just from where he's being drafted. I think that Najee Harris, I think there's a chance Najee Harris was hurt all last year, and that's why his efficiency was so bad. But also, if he wasn't, his efficiency was so bad. And year 3 of a rookie, this is the year that maybe they do decide, you know what? Yeah, we're not as pot committed. We were pot committed in year 1, year 2 with our rookie running back, but maybe we like a little more what we see out of Jaylen Warren instead of Najee. Maybe I was saying Jaylen, but I meant Najee as with regards to low efficiency last year. And so maybe Jaylen can continue growing that role that he started doing last year. I think that'd be fantastic. Maybe that's what the team needs to. All right, got ourselves that 4th running back there. I think from a tight end, we'll probably focus on tight ends rather than going with the Mecole stack for the potential Rodgers. Let's see what falls to us. Najee's value in round 4, he is going to smash this year. Respectfully, Mr. Ron Navy, I disagree. I don't see it. I think I've got virtually 0 Najee Harris this year. I've been mostly fading him throughout his early career. I just don't see it happening this year. Okay. Sam Brady, what do you got? You got Kyle Pitts. You got Mike Gesicki. You don't need another tight end. Go take another position. Let us have our Gerald Everett for our Justin Herbert stack partner. We don't want naked Justin Herbert. There we go. Okay. Grab Gerald Everett. It's nice when a plan, when a mid-draft plan kind of starts falling into place with regards to these late tight ends. Pairing Mark Andrews with 2 late tight ends that are also 2 stack partners feels really strong. I'm going to start taking a look as well at running backs because we got a little flexibility now on whether or not we say, hey, we grab our our 3rd tight end with this next pick, which will be pick 201. Or we can start saying hey, we know that we need some more running backs. So let's just start throwing these running backs. And I believe, we were talking to the team earlier. I think Israel is not currently in the ranks, but we're going to place him something right after Kendra Miller as a starting point. But again, most likely, even though, yes, there's a lot of hype, he's very fast, a lot of the good things happening. It's probably still, according to Miko thinks, will still probably be a day 3 running back, kind of compared into a Pacheco type, which is kind of nice. But there's, substantial risk in any day 3 running back. Any other questions? Throw them in. Otherwise, in the world of sports, we've got March Madness coming to we got semifinal game. Final 4 games, I think, are Saturday night, and then Monday night will be the championship. I'm looking right now for those who joined the Madness bracket contest that I put the invites out. Let's see how that's going. Out of 33 people, I am in 31st, 3rd to last with 0 teams still available. Looks like Whip It Cream. If any of you are Whip It Cream, let me know. But 2 people, Whip It Cream and hashtag Kenny, both have a perfect Final 4 still going. And with Whip It Cream having a stronger going earlier, we'll take that down. So congrats to Whip It Cream. I will be happily doing a draft with you. So I don't know if you're here now, Whip It Cream, or if you watch it later on, but shoot me a DM and we can start arranging that. But congratulations. And then hashtag Kenny. No, I see you around. Congrats in the 2nd place. Okay. A lot of those running backs went off the board. Our running backs are definitely going to be weak on this team, but we're going to end up with 7 of them. We're going to end the draft with probably 18, 19, 20 is going to be all running backs. I feel a lot stronger about Tyler Conklin here than any specific running back. So we're going to grab Conklin, give us those stacks, and now we are just running backs for days. Whew, okay, let's take a look at these. Any of these kind of feel good. And you guys have just taken all the juicy stuff off the board. We can throw in a Jerome Ford. He's a hard one to project, but if he can actually win out that second running back position to support Chubb. Ronald Jones has not been drafted much in these drafts, so decent time to kind of grab a couple of him just in case he has that Zeke role. I don't know. There's the Trey Sermon aspect, blah, blah. I'm just right now trying to think like who are guys can actually win a substantial role. I'll throw Kenny McIntosh in here. Kenny McIntosh is an interesting one where I don't know if you really want to believe it. So running back out of UGA, you get the big name school. Doesn't really have like from a profile anything to get too excited about. But he's the kind of back that like teams just kind of trust and just kind of like a plotter. And so if you look at DraftKings, odds to be like first and second running back selected, and he has the tied for the fourth highest odds. We're back. All right, Chuba, Israel. Let's go with Israel. Throw that in. But so Kenny McIntosh is tied with the fourth highest odds of any running back to be drafted first overall. And then I think that's right. Yeah, Bijan's clear favorite. Then you got Gibbs, then you got Charbonnet, and then you got Tajay, Tank, McIntosh, and Devon Achane all tied after that. Now, the thing is, Tajay, Tank, Achane, those are all guys that we're all drafting. McIntosh is virtually never getting drafted in these drafts. Early on in the offseason, I was taking him a decent amount just because I was looking at that profile out of the UGA, seeing some good reports that like, hey, this guy could be like a, round 3, round 4 draft pick. Slowed down on him a bunch when I realized like no one else was taking him and I felt a bit on an island. But interesting near the end of these that we're now seeing like the draft props still have him or now have him as actually kind of in that bucket with the others. Like if you take a look, I'll share my screen real quick. Let's go. Let's share the DraftKings screen for NFL lines and stuff. And you can see here, like I'm taking a look at these backs. I mean, it's names that you recognize all of them because we've been drafting them in all these. I mean, you got Bijan, Gibbs, Charbonnet, Tajay, Tank, Devon Achane, Zach Evans, Sean Tucker, Roshan Johnson. Everyone that I just mentioned is being drafted in every single draft. And then you have Kenny McIntosh that just feels like he doesn't belong in here from what we're seeing with the Underdog. So either it's a really weird thing, he shouldn't even be there, I don't know why he's there, or maybe this is a way for us to be like, hey, maybe we're missing something. Maybe there's actually a chance that like he does get drafted in that 3rd, 4th round. And if that's the case, like draft capital is so important to the success of a rookie running back, and should honestly be like the number one thing we are focusing on. I don't know about number one. It should be really high up there. Draft capital is extremely important from a running back standpoint. Indicative of what role they may have. So that's why, like, I'm okay with drafting someone like Kenny McIntosh, who's literally not being drafted at all. We are not being left with many running backs for us to finish this with. We kind of expect that. This is a bit of a 0 RB team. We'll hope that something can kind of come into fruition for us. Josh Kelly, maybe if Eckler actually does leave. Not really touching the Chase Edmonds. Michael Hasty's kind of dead with them signing Dearness Johnson. I've actually been mixing in a little Chris Evans, partly for the bit, because if this is the year that actually Chris Evans goes off and Josh Norris did not call at this time, while all the other years I was on the Samaje Perine side, I felt, hey, it would really be worth it for me to have some Chris Evans. But also, now that Samaje Perine is gone, like, who is going to be that backup for Cincinnati? I think there's a decent chance they bring someone in during the draft, but like otherwise, it makes sense that Chris Evans should be the number 2 in Cincinnati if they don't. Like, I think if they were going to bring in a veteran, they probably already would have done it. So I think like a rookie makes the most sense, but then it depends on like who that rookie is when they draft them. And will that rookie actually, surpass someone like Chris Evans as the number 2? The talent really hasn't changed. We just have more information from Bengals that they just don't, they didn't value Chris Evans as much as Samaje Perine, but like also Samaje Perine might just be pretty decent. Like, I think Sean Payton believes that. That's why Sean Payton brought him over to Denver. So I don't hate that as well. We'll end up likely with one of these 3 running backs here. Ron Navy. Yeah. Someone was asking on Twitter, like, where would be the ideal landing spot for Austin Eckler. And that was 100% my answer was the Bengals. We see how much Joe Burrow loves passing to his running backs. We see it with Mixon, that if they decided, like the Bengals were like, you know what, Mixon, we're done with you. Contract, we don't love it. Off the field issues, not great. Efficiency, blah. Let's go with Austin Eckler. He would have been an amazing fit in that offense. So I talked about Kenny McIntosh. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Let's grab some Kenny McIntosh. Finish off this draft. Let's close it out. We'll go look at my exposure for the whole big board real quick. But to end this, we ended up with 3 QBs, a Herbert, Rodgers, Kyler. Not devoting too much draft capital here. The Rodgers was the nice with the Garrett Wilson stack partner. Kyler was just too good of a value to pass up. From a running backs, Ramondre, we need to have this breakout season. We've got some, usage from Dave Montgomery with some upside. Cam Akers is definitely a risk, but if things can play out where he actually gets those 20 touches a game like we were seeing last year, that'd be amazing. And then, a lot of dart throws to complement it there. Wide receiver, we went very, very strong in the first 2 picks with CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson. Threw in a nice another piece in Chris Godwin. Started throwing a couple of value pieces, as I would say. If you compare our rankings, where we drafted them to where they are in the new ETR rankings, and not going too heavy with only 7 wide receivers. And that's okay because, we invested extremely heavy draft capital in the first 2 with wide receiver. And then at tight end, strong pick and Mark Andrews. We're hoping to get that Lamar Jackson stack before it got sniped. And then we made, it was nice process meets results where we saw which tight ends we wanted for stack partners. We nailed it with Gerald Everett, with Tyler Conklin. We had backup plays in the Trey McBride and the Zach Ertz if it didn't play out well. Overall, I would say I'd say a decent draft. I'll give it like a B. I think I would have liked to seen a little more correlation in our parts. Obviously, when you get Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen, Mike Williams already gone, it's hard to get that correlation. I don't love Josh Palmer, so at least it's just with Gerald Everett. Rodgers and Garrett Wilson is fine, and the Tyler Conklin, so I'm okay with there. And then Kyler, we just got the one Rondale Moore. Running backs are a little too weak for me. I would have liked to have grabbed probably one more stronger running back, but we kind of got a little stuck. So it is what it is. Okay. People still around. People still want to see exposure. Let's take a look. We need to go. I think someone asked how many drafts I have done. Filled out the rookies and sophomores. I did one of, that was just, is that what this draft was? Or is this just I'm trying to think what that was. Maybe it was just like a random one-off draft for a stream or something. I don't quite remember. And then, so pre-draft best ball. Here, I've done a 141. I have 9 that are on the board right now. I wanted to really get some of the slow drafts. For the biggest edge there was when that tournament was ending, when the big board was ending, jumping in a decent amount of the slow drafts, because what we're going to get is those drafts are still going to be happening in 2-3 weeks. What that value is we're going to be seeing things. Everyone in those draft rooms is going to be able to see things and react to things that is happening that only a 1%, less than 1% of drafts will actually be able to react to, because the rest are already done and no one else is starting a new draft. So everyone in those rooms who's still doing a slow draft now, the slower it goes, the more value you have, the more information. And this isn't like a, hey, I'm sitting on the clock because I'm hoping that some kind of news breaks. No, it's just more of in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, may even have it like, may even go to the NFL draft. You're now going to have information such as, I don't know. I was trying to come up with an example. Let's say Corey Davis signs with the Chiefs. Corey Davis hasn't been drafted really at all. Like, no, not everyone's going to get value, but someone who's drafting is going to be able to grab Corey Davis. Now he becomes a decent late round pick. when previously he wasn't even being drafted because you didn't know who he was going with and any of that stuff. So that's, I think, the value of joining. I otherwise will rarely ever do slow drafts. It's not good for the mental health aspect, at least for me personally. But I'm happy to do them just to close out these big boards. And I'm only doing about 9 of them, so not bad at all. Let's take a look at exposure. I can't believe I am showing a peek behind the curtain. This is my most vulnerable stage, taking a look at what I was actually drafting for these tournaments. So as I mentioned, took my biggest stand on Trey Lance. I just thought that, like, hey, there was, when we had all these other quarterbacks drafted first, second round, Trey Lance was one of the few guys being drafted in that 10th, 11th round area, 10th round, a similar level of individual game upside. Unfortunately, there's now substantially more risk than what I was hoping for. But it is what it is. I don't think I'm in horrible shape because, again, as I said, it's not like other people are going to be getting him in the 140s in this tournament. Other aspects, leaning into the rookie QBs, just because I think there is substantial upside from a range of outcomes, as well as going to be playing more action from Will Levis, Anthony Richardson when the playoffs come near the end of the season. Lamar, we've talked about. From a running back, Devin Singletary, for me, this was a bet that he was going to stay in Buffalo. And we see where Damian Harris's ADP jumped all the way up to 120. I think if Devin Singletary would have stayed in Buffalo, his ADP probably would have been around that maybe 120, 130 spot as well. So that's where I was heavy there. Ends up he goes to Houston, probably a bit of a wash. I don't think his ADP substantially dropped or anything after that. Let's see, where is his ADP now? 173. I think it's about where it was hanging out for a lot of the time. Any other questions there? So, yeah, you're asking about running backs. Yeah, Devin A-Chain is my number one. Actually, Zach Evans is actually the same right behind it as well. This was more of me drafting Zach Evans early on with an ADP. Early on in the draft season. I slowed down a lot more recently. His combine was not that great, is what it is. Wide receiver, Keenan Allen, I think, was just a screaming value throughout this season. There's no reason he should have been being drafted where he was. Majority of the ADP here for Keenan Allen was actually around high 50s. And I think people just expecting that he wasn't going to stay with the Chargers. Maybe the age issue. He was the 6th best wide receiver on a per game basis when healthy, when coming back last year. I think he still has top 12 wide receiver, in his decent range of outcomes on that offense. So I love that one. This was a great, I think, 20th round pick. His ADP moved up to 197, 203, but he was going literally last picks of drafts. So decent there. Richie James is one that I'm not happy with. I was expecting that he was going to find a role on a team. I thought he actually looked pretty decent for the Giants at the end of the year, but turns out they brought everyone back besides him. We'll see what happens, whether or not he falls on a team or not. That may look bad to end it, but I don't know. We'll see. I think the book still unwritten and is still unwritten there. We'll see he lands. And here's the tight ends. This was a bet that Gesicki was going to land on a more promising team. Irv Smith got the lucky end of this. If that could have been Gesicki, that could have been amazing. I still think Gesicki is going to be fine, but would not be nearly as high as I am on him now, knowing that he was going to end up in New England. You can see the rest there. Okay. I think that is it for today. Hopefully people enjoyed that little mixing it up with the $3 draft, but that's all we had to work with today. I'm hoping that when I see you all again next Thursday, we're going to have a super flex draft, something fun, something exciting, maybe some backyard. Who knows? Hopefully we'll have something new for you all. I still have one more $3 draft. So if we want, I can always do that next week, just so we have something to talk through. And as we hit the month of April. But that is it for today. Everyone, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy. It is opening day for MLB. Get those TVs on. Put a baseball game in the background. Sports, all the fun stuff. All right, I am out. Have a great rest of your day and weekend, peeps. Later.